Welcome back. In this part we are going to deal with refactoring of our project. So first of all, we'll need to add some additional information to our assembly information, such as description. So BlueTimer by Quasimodo Programs. Then we'll need a company, for example this one. Then we need copyright. Let's put our company name here as well. And also let's put it in the trademark as well. And as I previously said, we will not update the version anymore. Instead, we will work on this current version. Okay, so hit OK. Then I plan to use a lot of settings so that our preferences are saved between sessions. So, well, first of all, I will need a bool setting for detecting language on start, whether we should detect it automatically or not. So detect language on start. Okay, its type is going to be bool and its default value is going to be true. Okay, then we're going to have default language index, then custom hours, because I'm going to make it possible to create our own presets. So custom minutes, then custom seconds, then custom sub hours, custom sub minutes, custom sub seconds. Okay, so all of these are going to be of type int. Okay, what else? Then we are going to let's put this image here. Okay, and also we will make use of additional images. You can get them on GitHub, so English, German, info, and notify icon version of the icon. So just copy them and paste them here. Next, this is our legacy icon. We don't need it anymore, so we can just delete it. Then I wanted to change the default button style. So here I will create a style for buttons and like this. So all buttons by default will have this style applied. So here I will just, by the way, let's type it as this, curly brace, x colon type, then goes button, and the closing curly brace. So here I will change the default background to hash DDD. Okay. Then I am also going to change the default margin because I want them to have a slight margin on top. Also, I'm going to change their base template. So let's put it here. Control template, setter value, and setter. So here we are going to change the background, or rather we will create a border control with its background binding, and then inside this border we will have a content presenter. Its horizontal element is going to be center and its vertical element is going to be center as well. So what this means is that our buttons will consist of just borders and some content inside of them. So then we will have some triggers. Let's copy them here and paste them here. So style triggers is mouse over. If it is true, we change the opacity to 0.8, and change the cursor to hand. We don't need to change the foreground. If the button is not enabled, we change the opacity just slightly to 0.7, and we don't care about the background. Okay. And also, I think we are going to need another style for buttons, specifically for image buttons. So let's put it here. I'm going to call it image button. Oh, image button. It will need style triggers. So if the mouse is over, we just change the cursor to hand, and that's it. In every other aspect, it's just a default button. Okay. Now, what else? We have a lot of windows to deal with. So let's start with the About window, or rather its backend. And here, what I wanted to change here is just the website. So I just wanted to update it to a relevant hyperlink. Okay, that's literally it. And next, we started to draft our window by in the previous tutorial, but we haven't completed it at all. So what I'm going to do here is, well, let's start with changing the properties of this window. So its start application is going to be on center owner. Then let's change window style to none and set resize mode to no resize. We'll change the font family to Calibri. Change the border brush to #AAA and set the border thickness to 1. Increase the font size. So I'm basically recreating the style as in the About window. And of course, set use layout rounding to true to avoid any blurs. Then we are going to resize these rows. The first row will have its height set to auto. The third row will have its height set to, for example, 45. Then we need a border instead of just one button. So let's create a border, put it in grid row 0, set its padding to 10. Let's create its mouse down event. I'll call it drag with header again. Press F12 and get back. And its background is going to be transparent. Inside we are going to have 2 columns. So grid with 2 columns, grid column definitions. The first one is going to expand. It's going to expand, and the second one will have its width set to auto. Then we need a title here. So let's create a text block here and put it in grid column 0. Its name is going to be tblc underscore header. Its text is going to be by blue timer. Just type here the name of your program. Then let's make it bold, just as in the About window, and increase its font size. And below we will have a button to close this. So put it in grid column 1. And now we have our title row. Then we will need a border here as well for our actual content. So border, it's going to be in grid row 1. Its border thickness is going to be 0.1, meaning that it has no border on left and right, but it has it on top and bottom. And set its border brush to #AAA. Inside of it we will put a grid. Its margin is going to be 10. It will have 2 rows, so grid row definitions. Row definition, height set to auto. And the second row is going to expand. In the first row we will have just text, so we'll need another grid row 0. It will consist of 3 rows, so grid row definitions. Here I will create 3 equal rows, so row definition. In the first row I will have a subheader, so grid row 0. The name is going to be tblc underscore subheader. The text is going to be you are using Bluetimer free edition. Period. Enter your license key to work without these limits. Just a moment. So let's align it. So text alignment is going to be justify, and set vertical alignment to center, set text wrapping to wrap. Then in the first row we will have another text block. It doesn't need a name. Its text is going to be set inside of it, so just remove it. Text alignment justify, vertical alignment center, text wrapping wrap, but also set foreground to red. So, and here will go our actual text, so dash no presets, then we put a line break, then cannot set hours, then line break, then cannot use a subtimer, then line break, then sound notifications disabled, and I think that's it. So in the second row we will have a grid for inputting our license key. So let's put it here, or rather no, let's put it here. Okay, so we will also need a button. Oh, we already have it. Let's just move it up, and it's going to be in grid row 1. In the second row we'll just have a button to skip buying a license and use a free edition. So create a button here and put it in grid row 2. Its name is going to be button underscore skip, and the content will be just skip. We'll give it a solid margin of 10. Its click event is going to be button close click. So we will just close this window without registering the program. Then we will apply a style to it. So set static resource blue button. So save and go to backend. So press F7. Let's put this method up under the constructor. Example here. And we will just check if the pressed mouse is left. So if e.changeButton equals mouse button dot left, and let's remove this and this, and just press Ctrl dot and hit enter. Okay, so if we pressed the left button, we start drag move. It's a built-in method. Also, I want to correct the hyperlink here, and that should be it. Now let's create a new window to add custom presets. So right click, add, and new window. I'll name it window underscore edit custom preset. Hit enter. I will move it to the Windows folder. So here. Now I'll close it and open again. Its title is going to be edit custom preset. Yeah. The width is going to be smaller, like 225. The height will be just 200. The Windows Startup location is going to be center owner. I'll set Windows style to none and set resize mode to no resize and font family to Calibri and the border brush to hash AAA. Border thickness, I'll set it to 1. I will increase the font size to 16 and additionally I will add a loaded event so that we can get values from our settings. So load it and just hit enter. I will use a couple of text blocks here, so I will access window resources and here I will create a style for text block. I'm just going to change its vertical alignment. So set a property equals vertical alignment and the value is going to be center. This grid will consist of 2 rows, like grid row definitions. They will be of equal auto height. So height auto. Okay. And in the first row we will have a border for dragging. So border grid row 0, padding 10, mouse down, again drag with header, background transparent. Oh, let's put it up inside the grid. And inside this border we will have another grid with 2 column definitions as always. So grid column definitions. The first column will expand and the second one will have its width set to auto. So here goes title as always, so text block grid column 0 and name tblc underscore header. The text will be taken from resources, so text equals open curly braces dynamic. Oh, let's remove it here. So dynamic resource and custom preset. Yeah, I just have this value inside our resources. For example, here I have custom preset here. For English it's going to be custom timer preset, for German something else. So as always, make it bold and increase its font size. And in the second column we will have a button to close this window. So button grid column 1, its name is going to be button underscore close. The content will be just X. Set the horizontal alignment to right. Set foreground to hash AAA. Its style is going to be static resource transparent button. It's going to need a click event. Let's generate it and let's make it bold and increase its font size to 18. Okay, that's enough. In the second row we will also have a border. Set its grid row to 1. Now it will need border thickness 0.1 to have some margin on top, and set the border brush to hash AAA. Okay, let's increase it. Inside we will have a grid with margin of 10 and it will have 3 row definitions. So row definition, copy, and it will also have 2 column definitions. So grid column definitions. The first one will expand and the second one is going to be width, well, let's set it to 75. In the top left cell we will have a text block. So grid column will be equal to 0, grid row will be 0 as well, and its text is going to be dynamic resource hours. Okay, so it will have bottom margin, so 0, 0, 0, 5. Okay, so in the second column we will have a toolkit. First we'll need to edit. So example here. So XML NS, let's call it toolkit, and it's going to be in Exceed, this one, schemas exceed.com WPF XAML toolkit. Okay, so so here create what control are we going to use here? So I guess the same as in the main window, so toolkit integer up down. Yeah, so let's put it in grid column 1 and put it in grid row 0. We will access it from code, so let's give it a name like numeric hours, and its minimum is going to be 0, and its maximum is going to be 59. We will add bottom margin to it as well, and the default value is going to be 0. We will set display default value on empty text to true, and finally we'll format string to 2 zeros. So now we can just duplicate these. So copy and paste. So grid row 1, dynamic resource, this time we'll access minutes, and we'll call it numeric minutes, and also don't forget to put it in grid row 1. Okay, and let's copy and paste it the third time. So grid column 0, grid row 2, grid row 2, and this time seconds, numeric seconds. Okay, we are good. So grid border, and let's collapse it. Just press Ctrl M 2 times. So grid row 1, grid row 0. I guess we'll need another row here, so let's copy and paste another one and make it expand. Okay, so here we'll create a border. So here we will have, I guess, 2 buttons to save or cancel. So let's create a grid here. So it's going to be in grid row 2, and it will have a margin of 5. It will consist of 2 grid column definitions, and both of them will be equal. So the first button in grid column 0, its name is going to be like button underscore set, and the content is going to be dynamic resource set. Its margin is going to be 5, and be sure to give it a click event, and I'll make it blue. And the second button will be just gray or default, so grid column 1, button cancel, and the same for its dynamic resource, and just remove this style and generate another click event like here. Okay, so press F7 to go to its backend. First let's run code cleanup. Okay, now let's remove this comment, and here we will create a private field of type main window, and we'll name it owner. And we'll use the same window for two types of timers, for the main one and the sub one. So let's create an enumerator, for example, in our main Windows backend, like here. So, for example, here. So, public enum timer type, and it will have just two values, main and sub. That's it. So we will also add the timer type here. So main window timer type, and here we give it a name, so like timer type. In this constructor we will accept this same argument, but for example lowercase. And after we initialize, we make this equal to this, and we check if timer type is equal to main window timer type dot main. So if we create a custom preset for the main timer, we set numeric hours value to, and here we will access our settings of type int. So type settings, control dot, hit enter, and default, and the name is custom hours. Okay, and the same for minutes and seconds. So numeric minutes, custom minutes, and of course seconds. So numeric seconds, and custom seconds. Else, so if we have a subtimer, we do almost all the same, but here we add custom sub hours, custom sub minutes, and custom sub seconds. But the controls will be the same for the sake of reusability. And in window loaded event, we will just take the owner as owner as main window, and we need drag with header method or the event. So press F12 here and move it up and put it, for example, here. So again, if e.changed button double equals mouse button dot left. Again, let's remove this, and instead includes the using. So if the mouse button is left, we call the drag move method. If we click the close button, we just close. If we click the button set, then we check if timer type double equals main window timer type, and for example if it's main, and here we are going to change the controls in our main window. So for this purpose, first we'll need to change our main window a bit, because right now we have text boxes instead of using toolkit controls. Now we have an error. Back application, oh, we moved it, so image and /. Okay, so here we change TB hours to toolkit colon integer up down in grid column 0, and grid row 0. I like to specify that as well. Its name, X name, is going to be, instead of TB hours, numeric hours. And instead of text, we don't need it anymore because we use numerics. We will set it to be not enabled on the start, because it will also be unlockable only with those who have a license. And we do the same for TB seconds. So toolkit integer up down, and here integer up down, grid column 4, again grid row 0, and the name is going to be numeric seconds, and remove the text property. In the window edit custom preset backend, we can access those controls. First we access the owner, our main window, then numeric hours, and set its value to be numeric hours value. So this is the control inside our main window, and this is the control inside this window. So the same for minutes and seconds. So numeric minutes and numeric seconds. And we also will change our settings at once. So settings.default custom hours, and here we set it to numeric hours value. Oh, here. Okay. And custom minutes and custom seconds, like this. Okay, but if we set the preset for the subtimer, again we need to change our text boxes to our integer downs. Well, first of all, here let's start with adding another column, because right now we have a subtimer placeholder here. And now let's change this placeholder to toolkit integer up down in grid column 0, in grid row 1, and also let's give it a name. X name is going to be numeric underscore sub hours. Its isEnabled property is going to be bound to this checkbox. So binding, curly braces, binding, element name is going to be checkbox subtimer, and set the path to is checked. So if this is checked, this is enabled. If this is not checked, this is disabled. And it doesn't need text, and we don't change its font size here. Now let's add a column text block here. So let's copy this one. Now let's change this text box control to toolkit integer down, and here as well. So grid column 2 in grid row 1, its X name is going to be numeric subminutes. Let's copy its isEnabled property and replace its text property. Let's move these columns. So this one is going to be in grid column 4 and grid row 1. Its X name is going to be numeric sub-seconds, and again copy its isEnabled property. So each of these numerics will bind to this checkbox. Specifically, it's isChecked property. Now we can get back to our Edit Custom Preset Windows backend. Here, just copy these lines and we'll change them. Own a numeric, hold Alt key, drag your mouse here and start typing sup. And again do it here. Hold Alt key, drag your mouse and start typing sup. And after we are finished, we close this window. If we just hit cancel, we just close this window. So now let's deal with our main window. I will first of all add a closing event to it, so we can save some of our properties and settings, for example, for the language. So just hit tab. In the resources, let's change the vertical alignment for our group boxes, and instead of center, we'll set it to top. As you can suggest, I'm going to partially redesign it. So first of all, we no longer use text boxes, so we can clean up our code a bit. And also, we don't set the style of our buttons here, we do it in buttons style file. Let's change the color of our window. So, for example, hash EAF to FF, our text blocks. I don't want the style to apply to each text block, so instead I'm going to add a key to it, so X key, and for example time dash separators. Now they are removed because we don't specify the key. We'll fix it a bit later. First, let's start with these presets. So click here. So I'm going to completely change, or almost completely change, the parsing of this format and the format itself too, I guess. And instead of just fixed values for different controls, I will have different buttons for seconds, different buttons for minutes, and different buttons for hours. It will provide for more flexibility. I want to add a tiny margin here, so instead of this, I'm going to remove it here, but add it here. So group box header. And here I will put a text block and set its text here. So text, and instead of fixed value, I'm going to access our dynamic resource, single timer presets, like this. Again, I will add a margin here. So margin 0001. Good. A tiny margin appeared there. I guess we can start with changing our presets. So button. The first button will make every control equal to 0. So button content 0, button preset click, and instead of these, the problem right now here is that we duplicate the content and text. So we have to do 2 actions instead of doing just one. And in order to make it more universal, I'm going to change the text that we are using. So this tag is going to be all, which will mean just make every numeric value equal to 0. Next, this button, I'm going to do it as follows. I will put a text block inside each of these buttons, and it will consist of 2 runs, and the first run is always going to be a number that we are going to parse. So we can remove this content here, set tag to seconds, and I'm going to change its background. So I will have a different background for seconds, a different one for minutes, and a different one for hours. Hash FFB7 no, D8FF. So now I will access its content. So content, and here I will put a text block, which will consist of two runs. So run, its text is going to be 0, and the second run, we will parse only this part. And this part is going to be whatever we say. So for example, dynamic resource seconds. Oh, seconds. And now we can just copy it and replace this one. And now we will start creating presets for minutes. So instead of seconds, type minutes. Change the background to FFF 7C1FF. The text is going to be 0, but this time the resource is going to be minutes short. So let's continue. Change this one. And then we'll create a preset for hours. So tag is going to be hours. Change the background again to 4Fs and 9D9D. And the only thing that is changed here is hours. So change this preset to 1 hour and then 2 hours. And finally, I will add a button to edit a custom preset. So let's copy this button. Its click is going to be button custom click. It doesn't need a tag because we will not parse it at all. It will have just one run, and that is going to be dynamic resource other. Press F12 here and get back. Now let's deal with the right presets. So the header. Well, I think we're going to repeat our actions. So remove the header. And this time sub timer presets. And I think we can still use our old parsing as well. For example, here. So let's do it as follows. Button, content, will remove it. Click, button preset click, tag 1+1, but we'll edit its content here. So button content, and here text block. And this text block will have 5 different runs, one for each character, 1M plus 1M. So run text is going to be 1. Again, we do it for the sake of reusability. So 1, then dynamic resource M. And I do this because there are some differences in formatting of time in different countries and different languages. So then plus, plus, and then we can just duplicate this. I will parse similar to these ones. So let's move on. Let's copy this one and change the next preset button. And finally, again, another button for presets, this time for the subtimer. Copy this one and paste it here. Button custom subtimer. Click. Okay, then goes our language stack panel. We have a grid here and we don't use the first column. Well, let's put a text block here and put it in grid column 0. Its text is going to be a dynamic resource such as language. Okay, and it's going to be bold, so set font weight to bold. Set horizontal alignment to center and vertical alignment to center as well. And let's add a tiny margin to the right. Okay, next, here, I think we should apply a style here to remove the background. So set style to static resource transparent button. Let's add the same style here. And instead of text content, we will use an image here. So type image and here set its source to peg colon to forward slashes application colon comma 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 forward slash img and english.png, one of our new images. And let's add left and right margin to it. And now let's do the same for German. So style after the click, doesn't need text content, and instead we'll use an image here. So img and German. Now we'll add some settings on how to determine the language automatically or manually. So after this grid, I'll create a text block. Its text is going to be on start, so dynamic resource on start. Okay, let's give it a bottom, or rather a top margin, so 0500. After this text block we will have a grid with buttons. So for example, grid column definitions, column definition, two column definitions of equal width, and in the first column we will have a radio button. Put it in grid column 0. Let's give it a name because we'll access it from code, radio underscore detect language, and let's set its content to curly braces dynamic resource detect language. By default it's going to be checked, so is checked will be equal to true, and we'll put it in a group name because we have other radio controls here. So group name lang, and Let's set its vertical alignment to center. We are going to continue in the next tutorial. Please support me by subscribing.